From the New Testament epistle to 1 Corinthians, chapter 15, verses 1 through 11. Paul writes, "Brothers and sisters, I want to call your attention to the good news that I preached to you, which you also received and in which you stand. You are being saved through it if you hold on to the message I preached to you, unless somehow you believed it for nothing. I passed on to you as most important what I also received. Christ died for our sins in line with Scriptures. He was buried, and he rose on the third day in line with the Scriptures. He appeared to Cephas, then to the 12, and then he appeared to more than 500 brothers and sisters at once. Most of them are still alive to this day, though some of them have died. Then he appeared to James, then to all the apostles, and last of all he appeared to me, as if I were born at the wrong time. I'm the least important of all the apostles. I don't deserve to be called an apostle because I harassed God's church. I am what I am by God's grace, and God's grace hasn't been for nothing. In fact, I've worked harder than all the others. That is, it wasn't me, but the grace of God that is with me. So then, whether you heard the message from them or me, this is what we preach, and this is what you have believed." This is the word of God for us, the people of God. There are lots of times in the lives of families and even friends where stories become extremely important things to share. I know that in my family, as we were taking car rides, it would often be a time for stories to be shared. Sometimes I would make them up. Sometimes we would share family stories. Stories about previous trips or trips that were shared with other family members. Dinner table. Isn't the dinner table, the supper table, one of the best places to tell a story? I mean, the really important stories. You know, someone says, "Pass the bread," and someone comes up with a story about the one in the family who used to make bread. Memorial services or wakes or gatherings before funerals. I don't know how many of those I've walked into, and I could see in one area people laughing over sharing a story and people in another crying, sharing a story. Sometimes just sitting around with family or friends, or maybe even strangers, is the best time to share a story. Sometimes even an important story. Paul, in his letter to Corinth, has been dealing with a lot of conflict in this church. There were problems with leadership, which leaders to follow, which not to follow. There were sexual problems that some of the members of the church were having. There was mistreatment of one another, maybe even suing one another within the church. They were fighting about how exactly worship was supposed to be taken care of. Who should sit where? Who should speak? Should a person be seated or standing? Actually, that wasn't one of the things they fought about, but it might be before today's over something someone wants to fight about. The list of conflicts at the church in Corinth was almost endless in the first 12 chapters. He talks about gifts eventually, and even how people were fighting over those gifts, or which were the more important of those gifts, and who should have them. Then he talks about love, the importance the greatest gift had for us. And then Paul does something extremely important. He tells a story, but not just any story. It is the story. The story that is most important to all of them. The story that's most important to all of us, even. Paul tells them, Jesus came. Paul tells them, Jesus died. Jesus was resurrected. And because of this, he says, we will all be resurrected as well. The Corinthians' belief in what Jesus did, that was the one and only thing that they held in common. Anything else they fought about. But when it came to what Jesus did, to that story, no. They all believed that. Let me tell you a little story. I first believed in Jesus' life, death, and resurrection during a lay witness mission when I was about 12 years old. I heard some people close to my age talk about that story and what it meant to them in their life. And suddenly it became real to me. Jesus living, Jesus dying, Jesus being resurrected. And how that could be a changing thing for me in my life. At times, I held fast to the belief I first had that night. At other times, some very well-meaning people had to remind me what I claimed to believe. But it's always been the most important story to me. Jesus came, Jesus died. Jesus was resurrected. That got me through a divorce. A time when I thought everything was over. Nothing would be new again. Jesus showed me resurrection even after that. That story, that belief got me through the death of my 27-year-old sister-in-law and my father several years later. It got me through the long and winding path to become a pastor. And it gets me through the day-to-day of being a pastor. It got me through many of the same conflicts that Paul mentions in Corinth. That story, my belief in that story, even got me through being sued by a church member. You know, the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus is also what is getting me through this rather odd, strange time in our denomination called the way forward. Jesus' presence, death, and resurrection has reminded me and continues to remind me that no matter what I face, no matter what we face, there is resurrection at the end. No matter what cross gets laid out for us, for me, new life will spring forth. And that, my brothers and sisters, is an important thing. Clarence Jordan, Southern Baptist minister who started the organization we now know as Habitat for Humanity. Clarence Jordan was coming to Atlanta one time to speak at a church. And the pastor who picked him up at the airport decided to take a very special route down to the church because he wanted him to get a very good view of their big church there in Atlanta, because it was quite a sight to behold. And they wanted to make sure Clarence got a good view of that church. So they got to this certain point, and the pastor pulls over on the side of the road, points down, and says, "You can see our church from here." And Clarence says, "Yeah, I see a church there." And the pastor says, "You see that big cross there up on the steeple on top of that church?" And Clarence says, Yeah, I see it. I see that. Pastor says, "That there cross cost us $50,000. Clarence Jordan looked at it and said, "Really?" He says, "Yes, really." Clarence says, "That's amazing." He says, "Because it used to be that Christians could get one of those things for free." And we do, my brothers and sisters. We do still get a cross for free. Sometimes we use those crosses wrongly, but they're there to remind us that we follow Jesus. And as we carry them, they remind us that no matter what may come, there's new life. There's resurrection because we believe. Paul this morning told these stories that through Jesus' life, death, and resurrection, we know there is new life. And as we come today to remember that story, through the sharing of Jesus' body and blood, we too have a chance to remember the most important story we share as Christians, as a church, as a denomination. Now, have you never believed that story? Well, now's a good time. Now's a good time, even as you come and receive this, to say, "Yes, Jesus, I do believe. I want that in my life too." Is it beginning to fade somehow? Are you thinking it's going away? Now's a good time to remember it as well. Oh, the stories we tell. But the most important of all is this: Christ has died. Christ is risen. Christ will come again.